Good morning all, so we're going to do another video for you today. We're going to be using two of our brand new releases, which is the Illusion die and the Be Artful stamp set. We're also going to be, hang on, let's turn this over so that you can see what we're going to be using. Get rid of that, put that on there, there we go, Be Artful stamp. The Illusion die, and we've got Oxides in picked raspberry, worn lipstick and spun sugar. Oh, sorry. We've also got our sticky glue, which comes in the two sizes. So we've got the large, which is 120ml, or the smaller, which is 30ml. We're using the Honeydew Crafts Crystal Clear Embossing Powder, the Smokey Grey VersaFine. Now this is getting quite hard to find. We only can get it in the very small ones now, but we'll be working on finding something that we can replace that with, I hope. We've also got the banner punch that we've told you about recently that I use all the time and never thought to tell you about it, so there we go. And we have also got the fabulous roll of foam pads back in stock, so let's have a closer look. So we've got the foam pads. You get 1600 on here. They are 2mm thick by 25mm square, so they are finally back in stock again. So this is the punch I was telling you about. We've got you can cut 1.5, 2.5 and 2 inch, but to be honest, if you line it up properly, you've got marks in here, so it gives you the, let's get the light right on that, there we go. I think I came in too quick on the camera. So it gives you little marks on here with the measurement size, but if you line it up in the middle you can go really quite small. You'll see with our little sentiment, it's much smaller than this. So all I did was pop my cardstock in here, flip it over so that I knew it was where I wanted it to be, and punched it. So that's our fab banner punch. I've still got this stupid niggly little asthma cough, so I'm apologising now. So this is our Illusion die. It's roughly 5x7. So when you pop it through your die cut machine, I have pre-cut this for this demo because my die cut machine won't fit on the desk and everything else in the middle of it. So I have pre-cut it, but when you use our background dies, always try, if you've got, they're designed to go through the smallest, well, the 6-inch gap on a machine. But we would recommend that you put it at a slight angle. It just gives it more points to catch as it's cutting. I always also suggest that you cut flat to the mat. Now when I say flat to the mat, the flat side of the die, so that when you're running it through the machine, you've got your cardstock on the top of this, you run it through your machine, when it comes back out you can actually see if it's missed anywhere, so you know that you can just turn it around the other way and run it back through the machine again if you need to. Every single machine is different, so be aware of that. There's lots of different tips and tricks to try if your machine is trying to test you. Then we've also got our Be Artful, which is our brand new release. So you get the big like brush stroke here. You've got a flourish with 3 flowers on. You've got the 3 little bees, and then we've got Be Kind, Be Happy, Be Humble. And then, as I said, we've got the 3 oxides. We're using picked raspberry, worn lipstick and spun sugar. Get those out of my way. Smokey Grey VersaFine ink, just because it's not quite so harsh. The Crystal Clear Embossing Powder and our glues. Also got my Make Art Staytion here today because it's just the best. So I'm just going to whip that on there quickly so that we can get started. Card measurements today are, I have a piece here just for a sentiment, but I've already pre-done my sentiment. So I'm just going to show you how the punch works with this. So just an offcut that you've got for your sentiment. Then we have, let's start from the bottom up, it will just be easier in my head. So we've got an 8x8 card. We have 2 pieces of cardstock that, sorry, let's go here. A piece just to cut your die. As I said, remember, flat to the mat. So place your card on there, flip it over, tape it down, flip it over and run it through your card machine, so that, through your die cut machine, so that your paper is on the top so you can see whether it's missed anywhere. then we have one piece which is 5 by 1/4 by 7 3/8. I know, I'm sorry, awkward sizes. Then we have a piece which is just under 5 by 7. Now the reason it's just under 5 by 7 is because we're going to hide it behind the die. The die is roughly 5 by 7, so you don't want to see it out the edges. So by making it very slightly smaller, it will stick onto the die around the edges and you won't see it. Then we have a 4 1/4 by 6 1/2 piece of white cardstock and 4 by 6 1/4 cardstock. So that's everything you need for today's card. We do actually have the super smooth stamping cardstock that I use available finally on our website. Now all I've got to do is try and manage to source this watercolour card, and we've got everything we need to keep you going because everybody's asking me for it and I haven't got any watercolour yet. Note the word yet. I am desperately working on it. So let's get started. So we need to ink around the edge of our base. Remember my little tips and tricks that I always give you. Piece it together as you're going along because it gets things out of your way. I'm actually going to flip that over. Put a little mark on that one. So we're just going to run the ink around the card. I try and spin my card round so all the ink is pretty much in the same spot. And then I can, just going to go back on that side. It's not very wet on that side. That means I can just go in and quickly whip over there, which gets rid of our white lines that I tell you about. Remember, the oxides can go a bit streaky if you don't do this. And then any ink that's left on my mat, I can just pick that up with as much of it up with my sponge as I want, or if you want to, spritz it and make yourself some pretty paper. And then we'll just quickly wipe that off there. The little bit that remains, just grab some kitchen roll, dry that off before we go on to the next task. So that was with picked raspberry. Now we are going to blend our cardstock. So again, I'm going to start with picked. No, actually, I'm not going to start with picked raspberry. I'm going to start with spun sugar because I always find it easier to work from the lighter colour to the darker colour. I'm sure everybody has different ideas. So we're just going to blend this across about 1/3 of the way, maybe slightly. Yeah, about 1/3-ish. And the nice thing about blending on onto cardstock like this and putting a die over the top, it doesn't matter if you're not great at blending, because it will keep it in place and hide any blending that hasn't been so successful. And we do all have the unsuccessful blending pieces. I have huge amounts of spare cardstock for using underneath my dies for my blending. I think we all do. Now you need to blend the two together. So have your sponge ready with the previous colour for when you're ready to blend the two colours together. So again, I'm just going to work across here, roughly 1/3, and come down. And as I say, it doesn't. One of the other things I will mention, my foam pads are very well worn, very well used. If you see, it's not round anymore. Now the reason is because it's so well used, it's on and off these bits of Velcro all the time. And if you can you see on my blending here, to start with I get those, you can make definite lines as to where I've been. And that is just purely because my sponge is no longer round. So you just keep going in and blending over those. So I'm going to pop some ink down the edge here, and I'm going to go back in, load my lighter colour and go over the top. And just work those two, so we're kind of going one into the other here. And just work the two over the top. And it just takes a little bit of patience. It's not going to be perfect every time. As I've said, none of us are perfect every time. But just try and spend some time to get it what you're happy with. I felt that my worn lipstick was overtaking my spun sugar there, which was a little rude, wasn't it? So we'll just grab a little bit more on there and blend those through. Okay, so now we've got to bring in the picked raspberry here. Now my line there I think is a little bit harsh for me, so I'm just again going to load my brush up and just come out there a little bit lighter. So it's not so difficult to blend the two together. It's not going to be hugely difficult with these two colours anyway. But just make yourself aware of how these things work and see whether you can make yourself more confident with your blending. So just keep going over and over. I've overlapped the worn lipstick a little bit, so I'm now going to go back in, load my worn lipstick and go back over the top of that. And you really don't have to press really hard when you're blending. It's more a case of putting the layers on and letting them build up rather than, you see, you just keep going backwards and forwards until you're happy. Happy, happy, happy. I apologise, I believe if you can hear something, I believe the local public house has got some motorbike event on there today, which is not far from where we are. So we've had lots of motorbikes going past, very loud motorbikes going past today. So I apologise if you're hearing those. So as again, you can still see a few lines, you can see where it's not blended perfectly. It doesn't matter because this is the perk about doing what we're doing and popping a die cut over the top. It gives you the effect. I'm just going to go back in again because there's a few bits here that are a little bit too white for me. I'm going back in. This is with spun sugar, which obviously is a very pale colour anyway. So that's our blending done. Just tuck these out of our way. And then we're going to take the die. Now remember what I said about your dies. Tape your die down, then flip it over, flat to the mat, go through your die cut machine at the strongest angle you can do it from the size of paper you've got. And so that all kind of blends into one at the moment. That doesn't matter because you're going to then take your die. Now if you want, you can pop some foam pads on here and lift it, so it's got a slight raised finish. I'm actually, just for speed, going to just pop it straight down, but I just need to wipe this over quickly because we've obviously been blending on the mat. And I'll just take the excess water off. So I'm just going to run around the edge of this die with the glue. And you're going to have to spend a little bit more time doing this yourself. I would suggest if you're putting it down flat that you also put a few dabs sort of in the middle here. Not very many, but just a few, just to kind of hold everything in place. And then we're just literally lining this up on here. And then we're going to pop this piece on top of this piece. And it's your choice which way round we place it on the card. Entirely your decision. So we've put my little dog next door at Mum's house because she doesn't do early mornings, particularly on a Sunday. And she hasn't just got up, so she's in and out like a yo-yo. And I've just seen my mum go past. And she's obviously playing her a merry ride too. So it's not only me that she does that too. So we are going to pop a little bit of glue on the back of these foam pads. Remember, they're super, super sticky. So if you want to give yourself a little bit of leeway, pop a little bit of glue on the back just to give you some recovery time if you need it. We'll place that on there and aim for as near to the middle as you can get it. I'm just going to quickly lift that up to make sure we're in the middle. So yeah, we're on foam pads, and there we go. I'm now just gonna, I know I always tell you, load everything up as you're going so it's all, reduces the amount of paper you've got on there. I'm not going to stick that down yet, but that's roughly where we're going to be going with it. So our next pieces, oh, I forgot to mention, actually no, I'll do these next two pieces first, and then I'll mention the bit I forgot to mention. So again, now I think I'm going to go with spun sugar around the edge of this. My spun sugar needs a little bit of re-inking. I think we're a little bit dry, so it's taking me a bit longer to ink this up. But yeah, just put a little bit of spun sugar on the larger piece of the next layers. And again, go back in, just blend over there, so that, and it's not done beautifully, as you can tell. It is literally just to stop those streaks coming in. Just make sure we've got no ink on there. There wasn't enough ink there for me to use my foam pads to collect that up. So that's the layer that's going to go underneath here. Alright, I'm just going to move these magnets out of the way, because we're going to do a little bit of stamping now. So I've taken the brush stroke piece, stamp, so the large brush stroke stamp. Mine is, as you can see, already very well loved. It's lots of different colours. And we are going to use the spun sugar again. And I'm just going to drag it down the stamp, she says, hoping that some ink will eventually come out of it. My goodness, it really does need re-inking. This might take me a few minutes by the amount of ink that's gone on there. And we are just going to layer this up so it looks like a little bit like a whitewash. It is very, very much like a whitewash. You can hardly even see it on there, can you? Bear with me. We just build it up. It wasn't as dry as this. I don't know what I've done to it. And again, and the reason I'm dragging it down is because I want it to look like a brush stroke. If I inked it and had a solid image on there, it would look like a stamped brush stroke. This way, maybe not so much like a stamped brush stroke. And it doesn't matter if it's not evenly inked as you go, because as I say, I want it to look a bit random. And I'm just going to go back over the top of parts of it. And it hopefully is starting to come to life a little on the camera. Because from where I am, it's very light. But I don't want it to be really dark, which is why we chose spun sugar. I think you're starting to see a little bit on there now. I promise you there is some on there, and I will bring it up closer to the camera so that you can see. Now, if you watched our Create and Craft show on the 26th of August, which was last Wednesday, you'd have seen me use a technique like this, but I did it in a complete rainbow, going all the way down the page, and I'm just going to show you that sample so that you can see what I mean. But before I do, I'm just going to show you this up close on the camera. Oh, there we go. So you can see it just looks like you've whitewashed a piece of wood or paper or a painting or I think that would make quite a cool painting actually. But this is the one I did on the TV with all the different colours. Now you could have put that underneath the die. So rather than have your blended piece under there, you could pop this one underneath the die, which also looks really cool. So yeah, that's another idea for you to use it that way. So now we are going to stamp and emboss. If you could see the muddle that's off camera, everybody says to me, oh, you're so tidy when you're crafting. Oh, I'm not. It's just not on the camera. So we have got our flourish from the Artful collection and VersaFine Smoky Grey. As I said, we have only got these left in the small ones now. Can you believe they've discontinued it? How rude. So I'm going to try out a few other different grey inks because I need one that I can emboss, but that still gives you the really clean finish. And there's lots of them on the market, just haven't found one that I liked as much as this, so I'm just going to have to find another one now. So we're going to stamp this out. Remember, it's a big stamp, so spend the time putting the ink on. You want to get as much ink on there, lots and lots of little light taps, and press that onto here. Remember, don't take your hand off, always leave your hand in contact at some point with your stamp till you're ready to remove it. And then we have our stamped out image that we're going to quickly pop, oh squeaky, sorry, quickly pop some embossing powder on there. I'm hoping that because my ink pad was so dry underneath and all the waffling I've done, we will have dried the oxide underneath before we put that embossing powder on. Otherwise we'll end up with a little bit on there, but it's all just entertainment, isn't it? You'll get the idea. Now remember what I've always said, don't give it, with all of the VersaFine, just a light tap to take the excess off. Don't give it that flick that you would normally be told to do. A good flick to take the excess off, literally a little light tap. And that'll leave you just enough embossing powder on there to do what you want to do. Now we are going to heat this from underneath, purely again because I want the barrier between my embossing powder and my heat gun, because it will blow it off otherwise. It's your choice, entirely up to you. Now heat your heat gun before you take it to your cardstock so you get it as hot as possible. They do tell you to sing happy birthday to yourself and it'll be hot enough, but you don't want to hear me do that. It's going to take a couple of seconds to do this, so I will keep quiet while I do it, otherwise you're going to be fighting to hear me, so bear with me. So it does take a little bit of practice to do the embossing underneath, so don't panic if you're not brilliant at it. It just takes a little bit of practice. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a wiggle while it's still warm to try and put the cardstock back in as best of a shape that it started as possible. It's never going to be completely flat, so don't panic. You've heated the fibres of the paper, they are not happy with you. So we're then going to take a little bit of the picked raspberry onto the blending mat and some water. on a brush. Now you don't want your brush too wet because you're going to be painting on here, which has already got oxide on, so it's already wanting to paint already. So load your brush up, but not too much water. And then we're just going to go in and fill in those flowers. I'm not spending hours doing it, making it perfect. We are literally just popping some colour in there to make the flowers pop. Now if you wanted to, you could 3D these flowers. So stamp them out again and pop another flower over the top. That would look quite cool too. Or you could even, because it's quite delicate colours, you could even do that with a vellum flower over the top, which I think would look quite nice too. As you can see, I'm not being brilliant, spending hours making sure I'm not, I mean every nook and cranny, you're just going to get the idea here. And I haven't added any more water to that brush, but I'm beginning to feel like I might need to add a little bit. It's getting a bit dry, so we'll see whether we can make it around this whole flower without wetting the brush, but I don't think we're going to. It just makes it a bit easier to make the ink move around for you, but it makes it, again, you're making the ink move around, it'll make it harder to control it. Not quite, look, I need a little bit more water on there. You can tell that that wasn't going to make it all the way around, can you? How are we looking? Nearly there. So that's the first flower. Quickly nip into these other two. As I said, they're not perfect, just giving you the idea of what we want, the effect we can get. Now this isn't watercolour card, this is just the stamping card that we use for this, so you don't really want to load it up with too much water anyway. It does cope with it to a point, but it isn't designed for that, so it will fight you back. Almost done. It's not a complicated card, this one, so it's a nice one just to pick up for if you've just got half an hour that you want to play with. This is perfect for that, and it gets you a nice product, finished product, so well, I think it does anyway. I'm trying not to whisper. Apparently I whisper a lot on my videos, so I'm trying very hard not to do that, but I didn't realise I did until I heard myself back, and I thought, oh yeah, you do really. I'm blaming Martin every time I'm having to repeat myself because he says he can't hear me, and I believe it's because I'm whispering. So, last flower, and as I said, you could layer these up if you wanted to give them the dimension. And I've just got a little piece of kitchen roll at the side here that just takes off the excess water for me. Doesn't, nothing special. So there we go. The three flowers are just coloured in. Again, it's tone on tone, so we've just gone with the really light pink on the background there and popped the picked raspberry on the top. Now, when I did it previously, obviously you can see my background here was slightly darker. My flowers turned out slightly lighter. It's just whatever you do. So we're now going to layer this one onto here, and I'm just going to glue this one down rather than it be a layer, because we're going to have to put some height behind it because we did the others on foam, the other piece onto foam pads, so we need to pop some height behind this one from the underneath. Again, the glue gives you that wiggle room to get it in the middle, or as near to the middle as you want it to be. And I've popped a couple of little gems in the centre of these flowers. You see, just the three little flowers have got some gems in. Right, so now we can put this all together. So obviously we've put foam pads between the two layers here. So this, if we put just glue, it wouldn't sit right on your card. So on this side of it, we need to put some foam pads. This side, just glue. So down this section here, I'm going to put some foam pads. And some glue on those to give me the wiggle room. And some glue on this side. Decide where you want that to be. I just realised we haven't stuck the other piece down. See? This is just going down with glue. Cool, that could have got messy, couldn't it? I bet you're all there going, shouldn't stuck the other piece down yet. That could have got really awkward. Thank goodness I caught that, hey? So we'll put that piece down first. Then we'll take our topper piece and position that where we would like that to be. I think that's about right. Before I pop it down flat, I'll just double check. Yep, so we'll push that all down and that's all in place. So onto our sentiment. Here all I've done is ink around the edges, but you could go in and take your brush stroke and pop that on there and give it some texture and some detail. And then I've just done a tiny little bee, and I've literally coloured the bee in pink, so it's all colour coordinated. I've nipped my fingers on the end there, and I've just literally curled the card around my hand. Okay, and then we're going to pop this on here. That's about right, I think. Pop a little bit of glue on here. And stick it down. If you want, you can pop a little bit of glue just on the tips of your banner as well. That'll hold it in place slightly stronger for you. And that's it. So I'm just going to show you what I was talking about with the banner punch and how good this little punch is before I quickly go through everything else. Pop that to one side just for a second. So the banner punch, this one I've done it as the biggest piece so that you can see. It's a 2.5 inch. You slide it in here, press this down, and you have your perfect banner. Now if you want that piece to be smaller, somewhere in the middle, that it isn't going to be exactly one of those sizes. Let me just quickly run this through a trimmer. I'm trying to avoid it being a perfect size. So we're just going to take this, and it's not quite a 2 inch, but it's not a 1.5 inch. So we'll push that through, and just by eye, I'm trying not to get my head in your camera, roughly in the middle. If you're happier, you can turn it over and see where your flag is going to position itself on the back. Squeeze it together and you've got your banner punch. So it doesn't have to be those exact sizes, which is what is really cute about that stamp, about that punch. So here's our finished card, and we'll go through quickly what we used again. So we've got the Be Artful stamp set, which has your brush stroke, your 3 little bees, your flourish with your flowers, and your sentiments that say be kind, be happy, be humble. And we've used the illusion die. This is not good with that on there, is it? There we go. So we've used the illusion die, which is roughly 5 by 7. We have used crystal clear embossing powder, picked raspberry, worn lipstick, and spun sugar distress oxides. The Versafine in smoky grey, and obviously our sticky glue and just a couple of little gems. Now you could see a couple of little gems up here too, just to tie everything in, or you could pop a couple on your sentiment. Do it however you want it to be done. You could do so many different things, and this card, whatever sentiment you put on there, is going to still, it works for anything. So a couple of other ideas of things that have been done with this particular stamp set. So this one is a very beautiful, busy one. Again, this is all done with the Bee Flourish. No, it's not at all. It's done with the Be Artful Flourish. And the bees are obviously on there. And in the background there, the little white bits you can see is the basket weave die that we've also just launched. This one is done with the illusion die and the, let me think, bamboo messages. I had blank there for a moment. Another lovely one just done with the flourish and the bees added on there. Oh, we've done that one, sorry. This has got the bamboo messages with the illusion die behind and just an aperture cut out of a normal 8x8 card. This one has got the illusion stencil done behind it, then the illusion die popped over the top. The bees and the flowers are also from the Be Artful Flourish. And this is just a reverse of what I've actually just done, except the die has been cut out in black cardstock. So it's a similar style, just opposite way around. This one is just using the brush stroke and the words and the bees. You haven't got the flourish on there at all, but again, it just shows you all the different things you can do with this particular set. So this one is using the illusion stencil in the background. The sentiment from this one is from Bamboo Messages, and then obviously the flourish in the middle there. This one is the flourish with paint splodges. Again, the sentiment is from Bamboo Messages, and the paint splodges on that one are just in the centre, done in a real bright red, so it really pops it. And then if you watched our show on Create and Craft the other day, you'll have seen me do this particular card. Again, it's the paint brush stroke, and then we've used the floral tile die that we've just launched, and obviously the sentiment again. And if you can get, I'm not sure how well you can see that particular image, but on the message, remember I said you could just use the brush stroke to stamp on the background before you stamped your words on there. That's exactly what I did there. So there's lots of different ideas you can do with this. So hopefully that'll give you some inspiration. If you have got any questions, I know lots of you have asked for different bits and pieces to be done, so I'm working through the list and hopefully we can get there and get a few done. I am going to go back and do a couple of the demos we did on TV this week, purely because 45 minutes is so fast that you don't get to see the whole thing from start to finish. So I'd quite like to go through and show those to you in a little bit more detail. And there's a couple of things I showed on there that you might like to see without actually being seen done rather than just being talked through it. So if anybody's got any questions, please let us know. You can either email us on honeydewcrafts@gmail.com, or you can send us a message via our Facebook page, or you can send us a message via our website, which is honeydewcrafts.co.uk. I hope you all have a lovely day, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.